The massive ships appeared without warning on a Tuesday morning, blotting out the sun across every major city on Earth. They were unlike anything humanity had ever imagined: smooth, silver structures the size of mountains that hung motionless in the sky, casting long shadows over the world below. Within hours, every television, radio, and internet connection carried the same message in perfect, chilling clarity. People of Earth, you have 24 hours to surrender your planet to the Zephyrian Empire. Resistance is futile. Comply or face extinction. The world held its breath as leaders scrambled to respond. Some called for immediate surrender, others for war preparations. But in the end, it wasn't the presidents or generals who gave humanity's answer. It was a single voice that rose from the chaos, not from the halls of power, but from the streets where ordinary people lived their ordinary lives. And when that voice spoke, it carried with it the stubborn, impossible, beautiful spirit of what it truly means to be human. Maria Santos was making breakfast for her 3 kids when the world changed forever. The eggs were still sizzling in the pan when the shadow fell across her kitchen window. At first, she thought it was just a cloud, but clouds don't stay perfectly still for 10 minutes. "Mom, look outside." Her youngest, Carlos, pressed his face against the glass. "There's something big up there." Maria wiped her hands on her apron and stepped onto the back porch. Above her neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona, hung something that shouldn't exist. It was silver and smooth, shaped like a teardrop the size of a football stadium. It made no sound, cast no light. It just waited. Across the street, her neighbor Bob was standing in his driveway, still holding his coffee mug. Their eyes met, and she saw the same question in his face that was bouncing around her head. "What the hell is that thing?" Then every phone in the neighborhood started buzzing at once. "Emergency alert," Maria's phone screen read. "Unidentified objects have appeared over major cities worldwide. Stay indoors. Await further instructions." She looked up at the thing again. It hadn't moved. It was like someone had stuck a giant Christmas ornament to the sky and forgotten about it. "Kids, get inside. Now." But before she could herd Carlos, Sophia, and little Diego through the door, every television, radio, and phone in the world began broadcasting the same message. The voice was calm, clear, and spoke in perfect English, though Maria would later learn that everyone heard it in their own language. "People of Earth, I am Commander ZYX of the Zephyrian Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration into our territory. You have 24 hours to surrender your governments, your military forces, and your sovereignty. Resistance will result in the complete elimination of your species. This is not a negotiation. This is an announcement." The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. For a moment, the world was quieter than it had ever been. Then the screaming started. President Jennifer Walsh sat in the Situation Room, staring at satellite images of 847 alien ships positioned over every major city, military base, and population center on Earth. Each ship was identical. Each ship was motionless. Each ship was utterly terrifying. "Options?" she asked her advisors. General Morrison, a man who'd never met a problem he couldn't solve with the right amount of firepower, spoke first. "We hit them hard and fast. Every nuke we've got, simultaneous strike. And vaporize half our own cities?" Secretary of Defense Kim raised an eyebrow. "These things are directly overpopulated areas. Better than slavery," Morrison grunted. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, the president's science advisor, had been quiet since the ships appeared. Now she cleared her throat. "Ma'am, we need to consider that any species capable of faster-than-light travel and perfect coordination across the scale is probably several hundred years ahead of us technologically. Our weapons might be like throwing rocks at tanks. So we just give up?" The president's voice was flat. "I'm saying we need more information." As they debated, similar conversations were happening in every capital around the world. In Moscow, President Volkov was already mobilizing his nuclear arsenal. In Beijing, the chairman was considering immediate surrender to save his people. In London, The Prime Minister was calling for a joint session of Parliament. But none of them knew about the conversation happening in a small apartment in Tokyo. Hiroshi Tanaka was 93 years old. He'd survived the bombing of Hiroshima as a child, lived through the reconstruction of Japan, and watched the world change in ways his grandparents never could have imagined. He sat at his kitchen table, looking up through his window at the alien ship hanging over his city, and he was angry. Not scared. Angry. His great-granddaughter Yuki sat across from him, tears streaming down her face. "Grandfather, what do we do?" Hiroshi sipped his tea slowly. When he spoke, his voice was steady. "We do what we've always done, child. We endure. We survive. We remain human. But they're so powerful." "Power is not strength," he said quietly. "I learned that when I was 7 years old, watching my city burn. The ones who dropped that bomb thought they had all the power in the world. They thought they could break our spirit with one great show of force." He set down his cup and looked at his great-granddaughter. "Did they break us?" Yuki shook her head. "No. They made us stronger. They reminded us what we're fighting for." He stood up, his old bones creaking. "These Zephyrians, they think they understand power. But they don't understand humans." 18 hours after the announcement, the world was in chaos. Stock markets had crashed. Governments were in emergency session. Millions of people had fled the cities, creating traffic jams that stretched for hundreds of miles. But some people weren't running. In New York, a group of construction workers had shown up for their shift building a new hospital. When their supervisor asked why they bothered coming, Foreman Jimmy Murphy shrugged. "Kids are gonna need this hospital whether those things are here or not. Might as well finish the job." In Mumbai, Dr. Priya Sharma continued her rounds at the children's hospital. When a reporter asked her why she wasn't evacuating, she said simply, "These children can't leave, so neither can I." In Sao Paulo, street musician João kept playing his guitar on the same corner he'd occupied for 12 years. When people stopped to ask why, he smiled and said, "Music doesn't surrender." Similar stories played out across the globe. Teachers showing up to empty schools to prepare lessons. Farmers tending their crops. Parents reading bedtime stories to frighten children. Ordinary people doing ordinary things in the face of the extraordinary. It started as isolated incidents. But social media being what it was, the stories spread. #StillHere began trending on Twitter. Videos of people refusing to abandon their posts went viral on TikTok. Instagram filled with photos of humans just continuing to be human. And in a small broadcast studio in Denver, Colorado, a late-night radio DJ named Marcus Williams was getting ready to go on the air. Marcus Williams had been doing the overnight shift at KZXY for 8 years. His show, Midnight Thoughts with Marcus, usually attracted insomniacs, night shift workers, and the occasional drunk college student. On a good night, maybe 3,000 people were listening. Tonight was different. Tonight, with the world potentially ending in 6 hours, he had an audience of over 2 million people streaming his show online. He sat in his tiny studio, looking at the alien ship visible through his window, and he wasn't sure what to say. How do you provide comfort when comfort might be a lie? How do you give hope when hope might be cruel? He decided to just be honest. "Good morning, everyone. This is Marcus, and if you're listening, you're probably not sleeping either. I've been thinking about what to say to you all for the past few hours, and I'll be honest, I don't have any answers. I don't know if we're all going to die in 6 hours. I don't know if surrendering would save us or just make us slaves. I don't know if fighting would be brave or stupid." He paused, watching the lights of the city below. Even now, at 3 a.m. with alien ships overhead, Denver was still alive. Traffic lights still worked. Street lights still glowed. The city still breathed. But I'll tell you what I do know. I know that my grandmother didn't survive the Great Depression just to have her grandson give up without a fight. I know that somewhere out there, a nurse is taking care of a sick patient instead of running home to hide. I know that somewhere, a parent is singing a lullaby to calm a scared child. I know that we're still here, still taking care of each other, still being human. Calls started coming in. People wanted to talk, to connect, to share their stories. First was Jenny from Portland. Marcus, I'm a teacher, and I can't stop thinking about my kids. What kind of world are we leaving them? Maybe, Marcus said gently. The question isn't what world we're leaving them. Maybe it's what example we're setting for them right now. Then came Carlos from Miami, a veteran. I didn't fight in 3 wars just to hand over my country to some aliens. If they want it, they can take it from my dead hands. That's your choice, Carlos. But maybe fighting doesn't always mean violence. Maybe sometimes fighting means just refusing to give up who you are. The calls kept coming. Stories of defiance, fear, hope, and determination. And Marcus realized something was happening. These weren't just random conversations. They were becoming a collective voice, a human voice. By 4 a.m., the stream had 5 million viewers. By 5 a.m., radio stations around the world were picking up his feed. By 6 a.m., with just 1 hour left until the deadline, Marcus Williams, a guy who'd never expected to be heard by more than a few thousand people, was broadcasting to over 100 million humans across the globe. And that's when the call came in that changed everything. The voice on the line was young, maybe 16 or 17. She said her name was Sarah, and she was calling from a hospital in Chicago where she was getting chemotherapy treatment. Marcus, I've been listening all night, and everyone keeps talking about fighting or surrendering. But I think there's something else we need to consider. What's that, Sarah? What if they don't understand us at all? What if they think we're something we're not? Marcus leaned forward. What do you mean? Sarah's voice was weak but determined. I mean, think about it. They gave us exactly 24 hours. That's not how you negotiate with someone you respect. That's how you give an ultimatum to someone you think is inferior. They probably look at us the same way we look at, I don't know, ants or something. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting maybe it's time we showed them what ants can do when you threaten their home. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Sarah continued, and her words would be remembered for generations. See, here's the thing about humans that maybe these Zephyrians don't get. We're not just one species. We're not just one army they can defeat or one government they can intimidate. We're 7 billion individuals who've been fighting, surviving, and refusing to give up for our entire history. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. They want to know what humans say when aliens demand surrender? Here's what we say. We say that Maria Santos in Phoenix is still making breakfast for her kids, because that's what mothers do. We say that Dr. Sharma in Mumbai is still taking care of sick children, because that's what healers do. We say that João in Sao Paulo is still making music, because that's what artists do. Marcus could hear the emotion building in her voice, but she kept going. We say that we've survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that should have wiped us out 100 times over. We say that we've split atoms and walked on the moon and created poetry and music and art that can make you cry just from its beauty. We say that we've loved and lost and hoped and dreamed and refused to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. Now she was crying, but her voice never wavered. And we say that if they want our planet, they're welcome to try to take it. But they should know that every single inch of it has been paid for with human blood, sweat, tears, and dreams. Every city they see down there was built by people who believed in tomorrow. Every field was planted by people who had faith in the harvest. Every school was built by people who believed in the future. The phones in the studio were lighting up like a Christmas tree. The online chat was scrolling too fast to read. But Sarah wasn't done. So here's our answer, Commander ZYX of the Zephyrian Empire. No. Just no. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not ever. You want to rule us? You want to own us? Then you're going to have to kill every single one of us, because that's the only way humans surrender. When we're dead. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was gentle but absolutely final. And even then, our children will remember. and their children will remember. And someday, somehow, someone will make you pay for what you've done. Because that's what humans do. We remember, we endure, we survive, and we never, ever forgive those who try to take our freedom. The call ended. For a moment, Marcus couldn't speak. Neither could anyone else listening around the world. Then, slowly, Marcus leaned into his microphone. Sarah from Chicago, everybody. Sarah from Chicago just spoke for all of us. He looked out his window at the alien ship, no longer quite as frightening as it had been an hour ago. Commander ZYX, if you're listening, and something tells me you are, that was our answer. From a 17-year-old girl getting cancer treatment at 6 a.m. on what might be the last day of the world. She just told you exactly what humans are made of. Marcus glanced at the clock. 15 minutes until the deadline. So let's spend these last few minutes doing what Sarah suggested. Let's show them what humans do. Let's be human. What happened in those final 15 minutes would be talked about for centuries. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka stepped out onto his balcony and began singing an old song his mother used to hum when he was a child. Other voices joined him from other balconies, and soon the entire neighborhood was singing together under the shadow of the alien ship. In Phoenix, Maria Santos opened her front door and invited her neighbors over for breakfast. If the world's ending, she said, we might as well eat together. In New York, the construction workers at the hospital site kept working. 15 minutes left on the job, Jimmy Murphy called out. Let's make them count. In Mumbai, Dr. Sharma gathered all the children who were well enough and led them in singing a lullaby that her grandmother had taught her. In Sao Paulo, João started playing Imagine by John Lennon, and thousands of people gathered around him to sing along. And in a small radio studio in Denver, Marcus Williams watched it all happen through social media feeds, live streams, and calls from around the world. Humans weren't cowering in fear or rioting in panic. They were coming together. They were taking care of each other. They were being magnificently, defiantly human. 5 minutes left, Marcus announced. And look at us. Just look at us. We're not hiding. We're not begging. We're not giving up. We're showing them exactly what they're trying to destroy. Outside his window, he could see people gathering in the streets, not to protest or panic, but just to be together. Strangers were hugging. Families were holding hands. Someone had brought a guitar. 2 minutes, Marcus said softly. And I want you all to know something. Whatever happens next, these last 24 hours have shown me something I never fully understood before. We're not just a species that happens to live on the same planet. We're a family. A big, messy, complicated, beautiful family that argues and fights and makes mistakes. But when it really matters, we take care of each other. He looked at the countdown timer on his computer screen. 30 seconds. Zephyrians, if you're still listening, here's what I want you to understand. You've just spent 24 hours watching the greatest show in the universe. You've seen what happens when humans are faced with extinction. We don't break. We don't surrender. We become more human than ever. 10 seconds. And we're still here. We're still singing. We're still caring for each other. We're still being human. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The deadline passed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every ship in the sky began to move. The ships didn't attack. They didn't fire weapons or drop bombs. Instead, they slowly, gracefully lifted higher into the atmosphere until they were just silver dots against the blue sky. And then a new voice came through every communication device on Earth. But this voice was different from Commander ZYX's cold announcement. This voice was thoughtful, almost sad. People of Earth, I am Admiral Kess of the Zephyrian Fleet. 24 hours ago, we delivered an ultimatum to your species, expecting the standard response we have encountered from 847 other worlds. Immediate surrender or immediate destruction. Marcus, still broadcasting live, held his breath along with the rest of the world. We have spent this time observing your response, and we find ourselves confused. In our experience, lesser species either submit immediately or resort to futile violence. You have done neither. Instead, you have demonstrated something we have not encountered in our 3,000-year expansion across the galaxy. The voice paused, and Marcus could swear he heard something like wonder in it. You have shown us what you call humanity. We have watched your teachers continue teaching empty classrooms. We have watched your healers tend to the sick instead of fleeing to safety. We have watched your artists continue creating beauty in the face of oblivion. We have watched your families care for each other when caring seemed pointless. Another pause. We came here expecting to find another primitive species to add to our empire. Instead, we have found something far more rare and valuable. A species that becomes stronger when threatened, more unified when divided, more compassionate when faced with cruelty. Marcus realized he was crying. Around the world, millions of people were crying. The Zephyrian Empire has existed for millennia by conquering and assimilating other worlds. But we have never encountered a species like yours. We have never seen beings who respond to the threat of extinction by becoming more alive, more connected, more, as you would say, human. The Admiral's voice became formal again, but there was something different in it now. Respect. The Zephyrian Empire hereby withdraws its claim on your world. Not because we cannot take it, we could destroy you easily, but because doing so would eliminate something unique and precious in the universe. Your humanity is not a weakness to be exploited. It is a strength we do not fully understand, and wisdom suggests we should not destroy what we cannot comprehend. Relief flooded through every human on Earth, but the Admiral wasn't finished. However, we leave you with this warning. Other empires exist among the stars, and not all of them will be as enlightened as we have chosen to be today. Your species will face other threats, other challenges. But after observing you for these 24 hours, we believe you will meet them the same way you met us. The voice softened one final time. To the young female in Chicago who spoke of resistance, to the radio broadcaster in Denver who united your voices, to the elderly man in Tokyo who sang instead of cowering, to the mother in Phoenix who made breakfast while the world ended, to all of you who showed us what it means to be human. You have earned something no other species in our experience has earned. You have earned our respect. Guard it well. The universe is watching now. The transmission ended. For a long moment, the world was quiet again. Then, slowly, the celebration began. In the months that followed, as the world recovered from what became known as the day we said no, many people tried to analyze what had happened. Philosophers wrote books about the nature of humanity. Scientists studied the psychological impact of existential threat. Politicians claimed credit for the peaceful resolution. But Marcus Williams, back to his usual audience of 3,000 insomniacs, knew the truth was simpler than all of that. Sarah from Chicago had recovered from her treatment and occasionally called in to the show. Hiroshi Tanaka had become something of a celebrity in Japan, though he insisted he'd only done what anyone would do. Maria Santos had gone back to making breakfast for her kids, though now she made extra for the neighbors who still stopped by every morning. Life had returned to normal, mostly, except that it hadn't really. Something had changed in those 24 hours. Not everything, but something important. You know what I think really happened? Marcus said during one of his late-night shows, about 6 months after the ships left. I think we finally heard ourselves clearly for the first time. All the noise of politics and hatred and division got stripped away, and underneath it all we heard our real voice. He paused, looking out at the Denver skyline, peaceful now under ordinary stars. And what we heard was exactly what Sarah said that morning. We heard that we're 7 billion individuals who refuse to give up. We heard that we take care of each other. We heard that we create beauty even when beauty seems pointless. We heard that we endure. A caller chimed in, Jenny, the teacher from Portland, who had become a regular. Marcus, I've been thinking about something Admiral Kess said. about other threats coming. Do you think we're ready? Marcus smiled. Jenny, I think we've been ready our whole lives. We just didn't know it until someone tried to take it all away from us. But what if the next aliens aren't as reasonable as the Zephyrians? Then they'll learn the same lesson, Marcus said quietly. That humans don't surrender. We never have. From the first cave dweller who looked at a saber-toothed tiger and decided to fight instead of run, to the last person who'll ever draw breath on this planet, we don't give up. He looked up at the stars, no longer quite as distant as they'd seemed before the ships came. And if they want to test that, well, Marcus grinned. I think they'll find out exactly what Sarah from Chicago tried to tell Commander ZYX. When you threaten a human's home, their family, their freedom, their future, you don't get compliance. You get defiance. You get resistance. You get 7 billion people who suddenly remember that they're all part of the same stubborn, impossible, beautiful species. He leaned into his microphone, addressing not just his listeners but the universe itself. So let them come, whoever they are. Let them test us. Let them try to break us. They'll discover what the Zephyrians learned, what every tyrant in history has eventually learned. You can conquer armies. You can occupy territories. You can control governments. But you cannot surrender humanity. Because humanity isn't something we have. It's something we are. Marcus looked out at his city, where people were sleeping peacefully in their beds, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow they would wake up free. And when they ask us to surrender that, our answer will always be the same. The answer a 17-year-old girl with cancer gave at 6 a.m. on what might have been the last day of the world. The answer that saved us all. He smiled. No. Years later, when humanity finally developed the technology to travel between the stars themselves, they discovered that the recording of Sarah's call, along with Marcus's broadcast and the stories of all the ordinary people who'd simply continued being human in the face of extinction, had spread throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had shared it as a cautionary tale for other would-be conquerors. But it had become something more than that. It had become inspiration for other species facing their own threats, their own moments of darkness. A young Andromedan facing civil war would listen to Dr. Sharma's story and remember that healers heal, no matter what. A Centaurian artist losing hope would hear Joao's music and remember that beauty persists. A vegan family fleeing persecution would think of Maria Santos making breakfast and remember that love endures. Sarah's words, we remember, we endure, we survive, and we never, ever forgive those who try to take our freedom, had been translated into 17 different alien languages and carved into monuments on 12 different worlds. But perhaps the most fitting tribute came from an unexpected source. When human diplomats finally met with Admiral Kess at a galactic peace conference, she pulled them aside for a private conversation. I want to thank your species, she said quietly. Watching you that day changed us. We spent 3,000 years believing that strength meant the ability to dominate others. You showed us that real strength is the refusal to be dominated. She gestured to a small device she wore on her uniform, a translator that was playing a soft melody. That song your musician played in Sao Paulo, imagine. We've been playing it throughout our empire. Some of our worlds are trying to understand the concepts in it. Peace, unity, hope. The human diplomat who happened to be Sarah, now grown up and serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, smiled. Admiral, if I may ask, what would have happened if we had surrendered that day? Admiral Kess was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, we would have taken your world, enslaved your people, and within a generation, there would have been nothing left of what makes you human. We would have eliminated something precious from the universe and never even known what we had destroyed. She looked up at the stars visible through the conference station's observation deck. But you didn't surrender. You reminded us that some things are worth more than power. Some things should never be conquered. And now, because of what you showed us that day, the Zephyrian Empire is learning to be something it never was before. What's that? Admiral Kess smiled, an expression that would have been impossible for her species before they met humanity. Human, Sarah laughed, remembering a scared 17-year-old girl making a phone call at dawn while getting chemotherapy. Welcome to the club, Admiral. Fair warning though, it's not always easy being human. We're stubborn, we're complicated, we're messy, and we never know when to quit. Yes, Admiral Kess said, still smiling. We're beginning to understand that, and we're discovering that those aren't weaknesses. No, Sarah agreed, looking out at the galaxy that no longer seemed quite so vast or threatening. They're not. And somewhere in the void between the stars, on a frequency that only the most advanced civilizations could detect, Marcus Williams' voice still echoed a reminder to the universe that when darkness falls and hope seems lost, somewhere there will always be humans refusing to give up, taking care of each other, and defiantly, beautifully, impossibly remaining human. The message was simple, but it had shaken the foundations of 1,000 empires. We are still here. We are still singing. We are still caring for each other. We are still being human. And in a universe full of wonders and terrors, that had turned out to be the most powerful force of all.